Hi and welcome to In Focus. I'm Loretta Beniti. Have you ever heard of the drug Tianeptine? How about its street name? Gas station heroin, maybe Zaza Red or Neptune's Fix. Several states have banned this supplement because it can have opioid-like effects on folks. North Carolina legislators are also considering restrictions.
Why do people use it to begin with is the euphoria, the buzz they get off it, very similar to what they get from heroin.
Tianeptine is currently unregulated in the U.S. because of its classification as a dietary supplement.
And it means you can pick it up in a lot of gas stations in this country, convenience stores, smoke shops, vape shops.
It's causing concern for both Riley Sullivan and Dr. Timothy Ives, who are seeing students turn to the drug for various reasons.
What's really in the bottle is the real question. It's the Tianeptine plus a big question mark.
They say it's often marketed as a cognitive enhancer, helping with memory, anxiety, depression, even chronic pain.
It has a very short half-life, the time it takes to be eliminated from the body. Now, it may sound good and convenient for a medication, but if it runs out of your body and you are chemically dependent upon it, you're going to go into withdrawal.
The Carolina Harm Reduction Union works to prevent drug overdoses on campus. They say Tianeptine is largely a public health education issue.
One of the major concerns that I have about Tianeptine is how high the addiction potential is.
Dr. Ives says addiction to Tianeptine can develop as fast as 1 week.
They're almost like the 5-hour energy bottles in size, a quick drink and you're off and running again. Yeah. Wait a minute, what if I'm actually drinking 20 of those a day?
Both say regulations which could stop distribution and sales of the substance at a street level, like gas stations and convenience stores, are critical.
The past 50 years of drug policy has failed, and it's led us to this moment.
For In Focus, I'm Rachel Boyd.
This week we're going in focus on Tianeptine in North Carolina. This is a supplement sold in health food stores or smoke shops under the claim it is a cognitive enhancer, but is not approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for any medical purpose. And now reports to poison control centers around Tianeptine are starting to surge. In North Carolina, medical professionals are actively ringing the alarm about what's commonly referred to as gas station heroin. Two of them join me now. Dr. Richard Zen, he is the Chief Medical Officer at VIA Health, and Penny Shelton, she's the Executive Director of the North Carolina Association of Pharmacists. I want to thank you both so much for joining us today. And
thank you. Thank you for having us.
I want to start with you. You actually presented to this legislative committee, and in the simplest terms possible, because there's going to be lots of folks watching this that have never even heard of this. Can you kind of describe what it is that Tianeptine, what kind of effect it has on the body?
Yes, it's much more complex than what people would think. Dr. Ives was referring to the euphoria that is produced. Essentially, this drug acts very similar to an opioid, like drugs that we're more familiar with, like codeine or morphine or fentanyl. In its action in the body, it's actually interacting with the opioid receptors in the brain. And then as part of that interaction with the receptor, we get this massive dopamine surge. And our brain responds to these large surges of dopamine to actually lay down learned pathways. It's a way that our primitive brain is essentially telling us, we don't ever want to forget this. We want to remember this feeling.
Can you talk to me the first time you started seeing this, people coming to the hospital, people coming to the doctor's office with effects from this?
So it's been happening gradually over some years. At first, it was just a handful, but over the past few years, it's been accelerating, kind of similar to other gas station drugs that we've had in the past, like spice and bath salt.
A lot of people think in their heads, well, it's not illegal, so therefore it must be safe to use. But that's not really the case.
It's not the case. As we've heard, it's unregulated, but it's not safe. And because it's listed as a dietary supplement, people think, well, it must be pretty harmless. It must be something that, that's safe. But it's not true. It's not even really a dietary supplement. It's a synthetic. drug. It's a medication that's been studied, and it is utilized in some countries as an antidepressant, but the effectiveness and safety is really questionable.
Is a big part of the fact that this is a rising problem just because it is so accessible to folks that if it was banned, could we start to see those numbers reverse, do you think?
Regarding banning it, Dr. Zen referred to there is a legitimate use for this product. We've seen it used as an atypical antidepressant in other countries. And there are studies that are going on with the use of Tianeptine around the use of for it in depression when other antidepressants don't work. So an explicit ban on the substance may be problematic, but at a very minimum, this type of product should not be available just anyone walking in off the street to be able to purchase it. It needs to be something that is prescribed if it were ever to be made legal in the United States.
Is this one of those supplements that's out there that there is a danger of overdose with this?
Yes, actually, as being a substance that is similar to older tricyclic antidepressants, these are medications that actually are dangerous in overdose. So if somebody is misusing it and taking higher and higher doses of it, they very much are vulnerable to overdose. There was a series of cases in New Jersey, I think 20 cases in which 13 needed to be hospitalized and intubated due to an overdose of Tianeptine. And that wasn't even with like an intentional overdose. That was just overuse of the medication for the most part. So it is something that really is quite risky. The other thing about that is, as Dr. Shelton talked about, in the antidepressant studies, the dosage that's used is 12.5 milligrams 3 times a day. However, in many of the formulations that are sold in gas stations and other locations, the dosages are quite a bit higher. So, you know, that danger is pretty significant for those who use it, even at the dose that it's recommended, you know, on the label. And if people overuse it, then they can be vulnerable to overdose.
Definitely tough information to hear, but important information to hear. Thank you both so much for joining us today. And while many people are just learning about this drug, some families right here in North Carolina are struggling with the addiction to it. A family shares its story when we come back. Welcome back. This week we're going in focus on Tianeptine. You might not have heard of this drug, but many people refer to it as gas station heroin. It's one of these things that's out there in the marketplace that so many people are unaware of, but so many families are struggling from its effects. Right now, I'm going to be talking to a mother whose son currently is in rehab for this. We are choosing not to identify her because many in the family and friends don't know that he's in rehab, nor does his place of work. I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
So let's first just start with your son. Tell me a little bit about who he is growing up.
Growing up, he was a very happy child, very honest, very truthful, loved family, loved doing things together, just such a happy child and a caring and loving child.
So you're in the healthcare field.
Yes, ma'am.
Had you ever heard of this so-called gas station heroin?
No, had never heard of it. Have talked with many other nurses, providers. No one is aware of this substance.
And so when did your son start experimenting with this?
After he graduated from college, he was employed, a good job. We found a bag of kratom, which is another substance, in his vehicle, and questioned him about that. Oh, it's a natural substance used for a dietary supplement used for anxiety and things like that. We told him we didn't want him using that. It wasn't an option. However, he did continue to use that, and then at some point, I think he was exposed on his job to the Tianeptine, marketed as Zaza Red. We began finding that, and we saw changes, drastic changes in his personality.
Tell me as a mom what it was like to watch his personality change.
It was devastating. I mean, to see him go from just a happy-go-lucky child to anxious, very on edge, very quick temper, very confrontational, but on the other hand, did not like to be confronted. It was just very hard to see him deal with this, and we confronted it on several different occasions. He would tell us, okay, he's not going to do this anymore. Went to his primary care, got on some antidepressants and things, but also continued to use the Tianeptine.
There's going to be a lot of people out there who don't know what it's like. For you, give me an instance of when you knew that this was out of control for him in his life.
So he married, and when his wife was pregnant with their first child, we knew they were arguing. They were living in a mother-in-law suite in our backyard. We knew that they were arguing. Then we saw them sitting outside talking. We thought, okay, things are good. They're communicating. They left to go get something to eat, came back. She said, you have to do something with him. He's threatening to kill himself. So I went down to the house. I told him, son, something's got to happen. We've got to do something about this problem. And he mentioned he just didn't want to be here. I said, the way you're talking, you're going to make me have to call someone to come and put you in a safe place, the sheriff's department. He said, I'll blow every brain cell in my head out before you do that. And I knew this was much more than just, a casual use or a here and there use. So he was involuntarily committed. And for a period of time, went to counseling as much as he had to retain his job. And then we were back at square one, continuing to spiral.
How hard is it for you to know that your son can get out of rehab and go right back to the store and get this if he wants to someday, or that your neighbor's kid could go and just get this from the store?
It's very troubling to see what it has done. It's taken everything from him. It's taken his job. For this time, it's taken his family. It's divided our family tremendously. And it's very troubling that this is available in tobacco shops, gas stations, readily available. And like I said, healthcare providers, the majority of parents, educators don't know about it, but the kids do. And they know that it's available.
What do people need to know? What they need to know about this drug? And you've got a strong family, you've got a close family, what it can do.
We do have a very strong, very close family, and it caused problems with siblings, with other family members. I mean, it has devastated our family and changed the dynamics, which is, those issues are beginning to heal, and I'm so thankful for that. But what we need to know is that this drug is highly addictive. It acts on the opioid receptors just like an opioid would. And it is something that they'll try it, then they'll need more, then they'll need more. It's caused not only the effects of the drug, but also the financial aspects of it. To keep adding and keep growing your addiction, you're talking $80 to $100 a day.
What's your fear for your son now? He's in rehab now. Do you feel confident that this will be the end of this struggle for your family?
That's my prayer, is that this is the end of it. He's doing really well. We talk to the directors, they call us and update us, and he seems to be doing really well. Of course, the fear is that it is legal and readily available. And of course, coming out of a safe place, such as rehab, going back into society, a job, a family, you know, the normal stress and strain of all of that. Well, if he, you know, felt the need, it's readily available around the corner from his home.
We want to thank you for sharing your story with us, letting folks know a little bit about it. We'd like you to stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk with some state lawmakers who are looking to see if there is something that North Carolina can do to change laws. Welcome back. This week we're going in focus on Tianeptine in North Carolina. As the popularity of the supplement increases, so do the concerns. And now state leaders are looking to see if there's something they can do. Joining us now is Representative Stephen Ross. He's a Republican from Alamance County who chaired a committee aimed at tackling this issue in between the long and short legislative sessions. And Representative Amber Baker, she's a Democrat from Forsyth County, who also served on that committee. I want to thank you both so much for joining us today. And I'm going to start with you, Representative Ross. When you walked into this committee and started this work on this, what was your goal during this interim?
Well, I think this process all began with, I'll call it a concern or complaint from a constituent in my county that a concerned parent called me and described this situation to me. And I had never heard of Tianeptine. After really checking into this a little further, I talked with the speaker and I said, this is a problem that we need to take a look at. And then one thing led to another, and we formed this committee to kind of study this issue. And so we did, and as it turned out, we found more and more families with the exact same story.
Which is scary.
Absolutely, and so we started bringing in experts. We brought in doctors from Chapel Hill and other sources to discuss the addictive nature of this. We brought in the pharmacist group to discuss what all this does, what the pharmacology aspects were of this, and just putting it all together, we began to realize that there was a problem, and it was a big problem, and some other states had already started to deal with it. So that's how we started, and since that point in time, we have just uncovered all kind of issues. We have discovered that if you look at Tianeptine, for example, it comes under a lot of different labels. So they'll put it under one label, and if you were to restrict that label, then the next thing you know, it's coming out under a different label. So you have to get to the source, what is actually in, say, Zaza or Neptune or all of these different labels that they put it under. And of course, when we did that, that's when we discovered the Tianeptine. And there are other substances that are mixed and put together. Right, it's just, I've been amazed at what I've discovered just walking into a gas station or convenience store. I had the opportunity to go on a sort of a raid, I guess you call it, of a vape shop back in my hometown about a week or two back, and was shocked at what all was in this particular store.
Sure. You know, so often we talk about where there's differences with Republicans and Democrats at the legislature. This feels like it's a bipartisan thing. This is something everybody has a concern about.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to say that more often than not, you know, we hear about the differences and how we are not able to work together in the legislature, and that is accurate to a degree. But we do find commonality in issues that spread beyond political affiliation, and I think this is one of them.
And we will be seeing a bill in the short session on this.
We will see a bill filed probably either first or second day of the session.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for coming in. I've been watching along as this committee has been doing its work this session. I think there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to learn a lot of stuff about this. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining our conversation as we go and focus on the big issues that are facing North Carolina. We'll be back here next week for another edition of In Focus. Until then, have a great week.